Welcome everybody to Drunk Dudes in a Gun Room. Today, this show is brought to you by Operation Encore. Operation Encore is a 501c nonprofit that is helping veterans transition into music careers. They are making rock stars out of veterans every day, and you can learn more about what they do at operationencore.org. You can go over there and click that little donate button or follow their social medias and tell them about the wonderful things that they are doing. Hey, today our guest is Lieutenant Colonel Jason Pike. The Army investigated him and arrested him and tried to break him. Lieutenant Colonel Jason Pike is undoubtedly a soldier against all odds, a national best-selling author and book. Let's welcome Jason Pike. Hey, what's going on?
Hey, pretty good. I'm just sitting here drinking a Coors Light myself, so
there you go.
Getting loosened up so I can express myself. I'm working on my expression here, but yeah.
I got me a little Eagles Rare today, so.
No, I speak from the heart, and no, I did 31 years in the Army. I started from the very bottom. I was a private, but more than a private low. I was 17 years old when I joined. I was in high school, but I had failed the first grade. So there's so many odds. Soldier Against All Odds is one book I got. Reading and writing are my worst subjects, and then I got another book, which is the Veterans Benefits Process. But you know what? I got money to help. I'm a lieutenant colonel, so I got a little money to get people to hit me out with stuff. I can answer about any question you want on this stuff.
All right. Well, let's start out with what brought you to the military.
Wow, because everybody said I couldn't do shit. Back when I joined in 1982, you either go into the jail or you're going into the Army. And I figured I don't want to go to jail, so hell, I'm going to go to the Army. I thought, that's where the low life goes. That's where I went to the reserves, not the active duty. This is NG, National Guard. They used to call that the nasty girls. So I don't know how in the hell I passed the entrance test. I really don't know how I did that, because I failed so many times on the SAT scores and all the entrance exams to the colleges. I was just totally low. Any of your viewers out there, I guarantee you can do much better than me on any standardized test. I guarantee you that. So I think they just passed me in. Now, I had a lot of physical problems. I was only about 150 pounds and about 5'8", and I had osteomyelitis from the past, which is a bone disease. I lied to the Army. I told them, hell, I have no problems physically. And I did, but they just let me in anyway. And so I kind of just squeaked my way into a lower form in the reserves. And then from there, eventually I went on to active duty. But the reason I got on to active duty, the reason I went to the military is basically, a paycheck, maybe some benefits, maybe I go to school, maybe I can shoot some weapons or whatever. Hell, there was not a whole lot of expectations out of me when I joined.
Yeah, that's real similar to why I came in. I came in 94, and I had a wife and taking care of family members and benefits, and I couldn't afford college, so that was a way to get some college money. So yeah, I came in for real similar reasons. What MOS did you come in on?
13 Bravo, Field Artillery. So yeah, I call it a cannon cocker back then, and I went to Fort Sill, Oklahoma I went to 83, joined in 82. I was still in high school. And in 83, I was between a junior and a senior in high school because I had failed the first grade, and I was a year behind. And I went there, and I was the lowest of the low of the privates, meaning I was not adapting. I could not understand, go here, go there, I could not adapt to the military that well. And the story I'm going to tell you apparently does not happen, but it did to me. I guarantee you. I wrote my drill sergeant a letter and told him about this book, but he sent me to the Criminal Correctional Facility. This is a facility for processing criminals out of the military, and I was not a criminal. It was a motivational technique where you go to a different level of hell to try to get your shit together. And that's where I went to for only 4 hours, and it worked pretty well. It was like a scared straight program. It was I was with criminals that were doing, hard time, but it was sort of like, this is where they wanted to scare you. Like, you're not doing what you're supposed to do, so we're going to send you to my uniform wasn't tied on correctly, my load-bearing equipment wasn't on, my helmet with my chin strap, maybe I didn't shave, I just wasn't adjusting well, and so I'm going to send your ass here. If you don't adjust there, then we'll kick you out. And you're kind of on that And I got my stuff together pretty well after that because I was so damn safe. So, but that story doesn't occur. And so I got my drill sergeant hat right behind me. I'm still scared of my drill sergeant. I really am, even though it's been 40 years ago. And I told him I was scared of him. So he made sergeant major. He could have been sergeant major of the Army, but he made a really high ranking of the sergeant major, like at the 3-star level. No, that's my story. That's where my transformation started to occur after I went through a different level of hell. I know all these soldiers say, my basic training wasn't shit. Mine was like that Full Metal Jacket. It was definitely exactly like that. Even though that was the Marines and I was in the Army, it was the barracks setup. It was the name calling, the fuck this, fuck out. Yeah. It was exactly that, and that's what it was, and that was hard. It was hard for me.
Yeah. No, I get that, and it's funny when you said they called it cannon cockers, because I remember I had a first sergeant, and that was his favorite thing, to make us do what he called cannon cockers, and I always hated it because you would jump down, do one push up, stand up, go to attention, and say, 1 cannon cocker goes, boom, first sergeant. And then you get down, do 2 push-ups, get up, 2 cannon cockers go, boom, boom. I hated it, man.
Yeah, I was in that Army where they said, you call a gun, you call that a weapon. You say, this is my weapon, this is my gun. This is for fighting, and this is for fun. And I had to see someone do that. And he did it for about 15 minutes in front of the formation. And that was real. And this was 1983. So doing that stuff. And so, but yeah, they did that. Humiliation of race, creed, religion. Even if you get a letter from a girlfriend, you're doing push-ups, everything was like, you're going to get you on everything that happens, anything they can see. But that was my baptism, really. It was in 1983 and field artillery, Fort Sill, Oklahoma.
Yeah. I'm not too far from Sill right now. I'm over here by Leonardwood, so.
Gosh, they call that Lost in the Woods.
Yeah, I'm over here in Rolla, Missouri. So, yeah, not too far from it.
I'm down near San Antonio, Texas.
Okay, you all enjoying the nice weather there by I-10.
It's really nice right now, and they said we're going to get into the 20s on Sunday and Monday and Tuesday, which is really, everybody's going crazy buying shit because it's not even going to snow. So everybody's going to freak out there.
Yep. Well, the memes will start real soon that says, "Dear North, if you don't mind, could you come down here and get your weather? It's drunk in my yard." Every winter I see those memes from the southern states asking for them to come back down and get their weather.
Get the weather. Yeah, here you go.
So came in enlisted. You then how far did you go enlisted before you became an officer?
I went up to from E1 private to E4 specialist. I went through the primary leadership development course. And then, when I was enlisted, I said, damn, if I went through this crap, I can be an officer. I says, I can go to college. I became a lot of confidence developed in me. I went up to E4 and that's where I first got laid, was after basic training. I found a girlfriend. And because I had confidence, I walked better and I looked, well, I don't know if I looked better, but I had more confidence. And I said, yeah. And so I eventually went up to E4 and specialist. And I was going through junior ROTC. I had to go into a low level of college, which was a community college, a junior college. I was embarrassed to go there because that's where they, any but crazy, lame, lazy, or crazy can go into there. But I had to build up my skills somewhere and then go on to Clemson University in South, So I went up from a low-level college to a higher-level college. Everything was from the bottom. And then I graduated. But no, I said, you know what? The reason I wanted to become an officer the reason I even went to college, it was because, you know what? If I went through what I went through, I guarantee you I can do more. And I definitely needed people to help me. In other words, I'm not a good processor of information. Enlisted folks, they have to do certain things. A manager can tell people what to do. Shit flows downhill. I figured it'd be better to be uphill, having people helping me out. If I can take care of them, they can help me out. And I can just tell them, I'm fucked up a little bit. Can you help me? And then a lot of sergeants will say, yeah, if you're honest with them. And I said, well, you know what? I'd rather be up there than having to deal with all this petty little bullshit that I can't even understand anyway. And so, well, there is some truth that I don't work for a living. So, there's that old thing like don't call me sir, I work for a living. I said, well, hell, I want to be up a little bit higher and where I can get help from other folks and treat other folks right, be a manager of people. And I did well as a manager instead of, I got a light in here, but I guarantee you most people can change that light better than me because I'd probably get electrocuted. But that's just me. And so I started looking at my weaknesses and my strengths after I went through that. And I said, you know what, I think I can go to college, but I'm going to have to start low and go a little bit longer, nothing technical, and then go that way and then become an officer. And I did. So that's kind of how that worked. And I did become commissioned in the South Carolina National Guard. I started, in the National Guard, and eventually I got an ROTC scholarship from Clemson University. They paid for everything. From there, I went on to active duty. I went from the National Guard to active.
Have you ever wondered how you can help out the show? Well, that is very simple. You can help us out by going to www.twodrunkdudesinAgunroom.com. That is www.twodrunkdudesinAgunroom.com. There's many ways you can help us by listening to the show, supporting the show, liking, sharing, and everything else that comes along with social media. But one of our biggest goals is to help build the nonprofit Heroes Voice Media Foundation. This is a foundation that has decided to start celebrating courage and amplifying heroes. Find your voice with Heroes Voice Media Foundation.
The National Guard, and I thought they forgot about my obligation to go to active duty, so I didn't tell them anything. So they said, "Hey, you got to go fulfill your obligation for active duty because you had a scholarship." Because I was in the National Guard. So what I did is with Clemson University, I got my commission, and then I went into the National. I was able to get into the National Guard. And then later on, they found out, hey, you know what, we forgot or whatever, you got to come back. You got to go on to active duty as an officer to fulfill the scholarship obligation. And once I got on to active duty there, I said, man, there's a lot of benefits here. And I want to stay active duty. Yeah, I went Clemson University. When I went in, I went from enlisted National Guard, scholarship to ROTC. Once I got in scholarship ROTC, I got commissioned. From the commissioning of ROTC, I went back into the National Guard. I pursued a master's degree. Now I had a delay. It's called an educational delay from active duty. I didn't, and I didn't want to go active duty. I just said, well, I'll just stay in there. But they said, hey, you got to come. You got to go fulfill your obligation. So that's kind of how that transpired. A little bit of bureaucratic complications there, but maybe some viewers don't know. But really, active duty, once I hit active duty, I was pretty good to go. But no, I was not the best soldier, put it that way. As you know, almost got kicked out the first time. I dated a private as a lieutenant, which was not considered good to do, especially if that's fraternization. I got a cease and desist letter from a battalion commander when I was a second lieutenant saying, you will not see this girl. It was in writing. I wish I still kept it. But he said, you will not see this girl anymore. Back then, women in the military were very rare in the early 1990, I think it was. Especially good-looking women were very rare. And she was very good-looking. So maybe that was a problem. If she was bad looking, I may have not got it. If she was a bad looking girl, I may not have got that letter. But no, she was a good looking girl, and she says, you will not see her again. We've seen you. And so I think, well, I'm single, she's single. This was my argument as the second lieutenant to the battalion commander. I'm single, she's single. We're just reserve soldiers. We're weekend warriors. What does it really matter? He says, well, I'm the damn commander, and I don't give a damn about your regulation of fraternization. It's like, you do what the hell I say. I said, okay, yes, sir. And so he says, do you understand? He wrote it down. He typed it down. It was a cease and desist of the relationship. We were on a 2-week event, so annual trainings, and it was at Fort Gordon, Georgia. And he says, do you understand? I said, I signed it. And I knew at that time my evaluation would be hosed. That was documentation to, pretty much execute me on the evaluation. And I was executed on the evaluation. But I did see the private done. And I looked at the thing. I said, fuck this shit. I tore it up. Once I left, I said, I continued to see the girl. What that taught me to do was to do things in private instead of, when I was doing it, I didn't think anything was wrong. And then once she said it was wrong, I said, well, I'm going to have it. And So I'll just learn to hide it. And but no, yeah, I was hosed on that evaluation. It was wrong for me to do that in hindsight. I was cocky. I felt, hey, people said I can't go to college. I did. People say I can't be an officer. I did. And I say, well, I was feeling really like, I can do anything. So, yeah, and that was that. And, it was weird because once I got the cease and desist letter and once my evaluation was completely hosed, I was done. I mean, pretty much my opportunity for advancement was gone in the military, in the National Guard after that evaluation. And my reputation, word spread around that this guy's a rogue. I was a rogue character. So, but then the Clemson says, do you want to go active? Well, they didn't say it. The Army says, you got to come fulfill your obligation. I said, hell, yeah. I got fired. I was like, well, I got fired. And I said, well, hell yeah, I'll go. So how events occur in life, there's ups and downs in life. And that was a downtime. And then, well, here I am. I'm going to go to active duty. I got another job. And I get away from all that stuff that I had made a bad reputation out of myself. Well, there's other bad reputations that occurred through the military. But I kept on going up and up and up. And it was a roller coaster ride. And I went on to active duty. They gave me the 10th Special Forces Group at Fort Devens. Well, now it's at Fort Carson, but that was in Fort Devens. And I became a chemical officer. I was a chemical officer and 3rd Special Forces Group. Coming from the National Guard, as a lieutenant, going straight into Special Forces, an airborne unit, was pretty, really honorable. That was like a night and day existence. And I really was very, very thankful. I had a lot of problems in my 20s. Like during that time of the I had law enforcement events. I had girlfriend problems. I had all kinds of situations. And I think what I'm trying to teach is just like, just keep going. I mean, you might have this reckless behavior, which I have had. You may have all these events that occur to you, but just do the best you can in life's circumstances. And don't give up any hope in life. Just keep going forward. And, I was done. I mean, I still got a reputation back there, but I'm proud of my reputation. Now, back then I was ashamed of it. And now I'm a lieutenant colonel now, but I can look back and be proud. Not that we all live and learn. I mean, that's just the way life is. And so there's just so many stories. It's just unreal.
Yeah. So, man, that is interesting. So you became a chemical officer sent to, you said, was it 5th Group you said?
10th Group. It was at 10th Group was at, right now it's in Fort Carson, Colorado. Yeah. But at the time there was a 3rd Battalion of the 10th Group at Fort Devens, Massachusetts. Yeah. So wow. I went there in 1993. I only stayed there for 1 year. There was and I loved it. I really enjoyed Special Forces. I was a support guy, Red Beret, not Green Beret. I got to quantify that. I had airborne training. I jumped out of airplanes. I was better at jumping out of airplanes than I was going to college. So I was stupid enough to jump out of an airplane. I would do that any day. But you know what? Fort Devens, I went up there and I really enjoyed the rogueness, the equipment they give you. And people were just like they come to training with hands in their pockets, with dogs, with a coffee cup. It was just so relaxed. And we would do hardcore training, but, it was more relaxed. It wasn't that regimented. And there wasn't a lot of the bullshit that you have in the Army.
The big boy program.
Yeah. I love that. I think everybody liked it. Even cooks and supply sergeants liked it. Everybody liked it. But I knew that I felt that I could not go into the Special Forces because of so much training and things. I knew I've always wanted to be in the medical services of the military, where in the medical service corps, the sciences, I enjoyed sciences. I understand those things. But when I was in ROTC, they told me, you can't go into the medical services of the military because you're not a doctor. But I found out that's not true. You don't have to. There's so many specialties in the Army Medical Department, dietitians, preventive medicine people. There's just so many things that are out there and it's a little special. But see, the ROTC people, they don't know everything. They don't know everything, just like So I lived and learned. I went up there and I found somebody in the environmental sciences and the public health that was in the group, the 10th Special Forces group staff. Another lieutenant, he says, you can do this and this and this in the medical service corps. I said, shit, I'm going to get out of the chemical corps and transfer over to the medical services corps. And that's what I did. But I really hated to leave Special Forces. I didn't want to stay in chemical corps. I knew if I needed to cut if I'm good, and they told me you can't branch transfer. Be careful what people tell you can't do. But I did it because you cost too damn much money. You're an officer. But that was the conventional wisdom at the time. But I went ahead and I said, I'm going to give it a try. And I did. And it worked. 2 inches of paperwork of justification, but it did work. No, I loved it. I loved a Special Forces group. It was probably my best assignment. And the reason I didn't stay there is because I knew eventually I was going to be sucked up into that conventional chemical world, which would be really, really bad. And I wanted to get my paperwork straight while, I wanted to get my paperwork straight while people say, hey, man, they'll sign any damn 10th Special Forces group. They don't give a shit. Like they'll sign anything for you. Oh, man. So I wanted to get that. I wanted to knock that out while I was there. But I loved it. I felt, jumping out of airplanes and working with those professionals of the Green Berets were just a wonderful experience. But I knew that when I hit active duty, I knew 20 years, man. I said, God, 20 years, you get a paycheck. I said, whoa, man. It's like, if I can save, but if I'm going to do 20 years, I better do it in something a little bit easier than Special Forces because you're going to get broken up. These guys were broken up a lot. And I said, well, when they get in their 30s, and I said, I got to put in my 20, but I wanted to get in something I was interested in, sciences and things. Public health, prevention of diseases, something I could understand those things. And, not in chemical, not in anything like artillery or infantry.
Yeah. No, I get that. So where did they send you when you became in the medical field?
First, I went to become an executive officer in Daegu, South Korea, Camp Walker. That was in 1994. It was under the 168 Medical Battalion. And so I went there. It was my first real long overseas assignment was in South Korea. Daegu, South Korea, Camp Walker. I loved it. Oh, man, I love Korean food is the best food that I still eat it today. Yeah. And the Asian women, I love Asian women. I married a Vietnamese woman. And there's just so many things that changed once I hit overseas, I think. And, I was still kind of a bad soldier in a way, even though I was a lieutenant. And I went AWOL. I went down to the Philippines to visit Filipino women and things of that nature. I almost got brought up on charges of AWOL as a first. Well, I was a first lieutenant at that time, and I was just dating girls and going out and drinking and whatever. It was I was different. I'd come from the enlisted combat arms ranks. Now I'm in this. I'm scratching myself, barking and belching. I was belching and farting. And there's females now, this is 1994, but I'm in the medical services and there's females around me and I'm still acting like a guy. And I came from 10th Special Forces group. So I got a good chapter in my book once called Farting. I was written up on belching, farting, and scratching. I got a chapter on that. The reason I put a chapter on that is because when I go into Korea, I was just acting like a dude like everybody else. But there's one woman that says, I don't like you scratching, farting, and belching and stuff like that. And I'm thinking, so where I come from, it didn't really matter. So she wrote a letter to the commander, and the commander says, well, he brought me in. He says, you know what? You've been brought in on charges of this letter of a complaint of belching, farting, and scratching. I said, he says, but you know what? There's no regulation about belching, farting, and scratching. And he says, well, this is the letter that she wrote. And he says, well, I know you came from field artillery. I know you came enlisted and you've never been around females. And he says, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just tear this letter up about, the farting, belching, and scratching. And I'm just going to give you a warning. Just be careful. You're now in medical. There's females around and you just can't behave like you've been behaving. And he laughed and he just dismissed me out of his office. But I got a chapter in here called Farting, Belching, and Scratching. So, yeah, this is for anybody. But it's all true. I mean, it is true. I mean, you can't make this shit up.
No, yeah. So not to skip over, you said you kind of went AWOL to go down and visit girls. And you didn't – what happened from that?
Yeah, so I that was really stupid of me to do that. But what I would do is I would just leave on these. We have a lot of 4-day weekends in the military, and I would just leave. These are considered 4-day passes or 4-day freebies. And I would just go down to the Philippines. It was about a 4-hour flight from Seoul to Manila. And I would just go and hang out and visit all the girls and go to Angeles City and Olongapo, because somebody told me there was a lot of good women there. I said, yeah, okay. And it's cheap. And I said, okay, it's not far. And I would just go. That was considered AWOL, absent without leave. I did that a lot of times. And that was not, in my mind was, if I got a flight down there, I come back, I'm fine. Technically, I knew it was AWOL, but I thought, well, it's my time off as well. It's my 4 days. You're not supposed to leave Korea.
Right.
But I did. So I did something wrong. And so it was technically AWOL, and I did that lots of times. But the reason they found out is because I was dating this girl at the office as well. And I told her. And then once we broke up, she told the commander. And then the commander said, hey, you've been going AWOL. And I said, yeah. But, well, it didn't really get to me because, the reason it didn't get to me because I was by the time it got to me, I was in the process of PCSing out of there. So by the time we broke up, my evaluation was already written up and I was already about to leave the assignment. And, I was wrong when I look back in hindsight. And I know that, there's some things, you do things stupid and you think back later, I shouldn't have done that. I know I pissed him off and, but I wrote it up. So my sins are my sins. I put my sins in here and I put in my memoir, I felt that I did, this is what I did, but I look back, but I had a lot of good times. I was skinny. I was walking. I was skating on thin ice. The girl that I was dating, she was already married. So that would be considered adultery. Even though I was single, she was married. And she was married to somebody in the criminal investigation division. But there was another chief warrant officer. But the thing about it is, I didn't care. I felt, hey man, they told me I can't go to college. I did. They tell me I can't do shit. And I did. And I was like, well, I felt that I could get away with I was a very humble, but I was cocky. I'm thinking, you know what? Hey, I can do these things and I can do this. I can do that. And I wasn't like, I was good to soldiers, but I was like, to the authority and to the regulations, I felt, yeah, I don't give a shit. I'll just do what I need to do. And that was kind of my attitude. So, but that's how, so that girl that turned me in, she was married and she was my girlfriend and she turned me into the commander. And so he found out about that. And it was just, I was already out the door. Matter of fact, I was a first lieutenant and my name was Mud when I was walking out, leaving Korea. My name was Mud at the time. And, that was another time. Many times my name was Mud, and I walked out with my duffel bag on my shoulder, and I went to the train station. I'm by myself. No one would have drove me out because the commander. I was on the shit list there when I walked out. When I went out that.
Yeah. So when you were leaving Korea, I was coming to Korea. So yeah.
Where'd you go?
I was up by CRC, a little camp called Camp Kyle.
Okay. Wow.
Yep.
I was down south. It's a little easier down there than where you were at, I think, as far as the pucker factor.
Yeah. Well, I would, up there, they were only allowed to give you a certain amount of passes. They had to keep a certain amount of people on there. So what I discovered I would do is I wouldn't get a pass. I wouldn't take one so that other people could have them. And what I did was I would act like I was signing out, but not actually sign my name. And then I would go down to Osan or Humphreys, somewhere down south, and hang out down there for the weekend. And then I'd come back up on Sunday and I'd double write my name like I left Sunday and came back Sunday.
That's another way to do it.
Yeah. The only way I would have got caught is if somebody told on me, or, occasionally they did go through the barracks and at the middle of the night and do some random searches, because for some reason some guys and some girls couldn't find their way back to their room and they would commingle somehow.
I understand. Yeah, I was a little different. I left the entire peninsula.
I don't think I would have had the balls to do that.
That was I look back on some of these things, especially dating a married woman. I did adultery. That would be technically adultery, and I didn't know he was with it. Yeah. So, and I come out with a whole lot of things with the book, and it's audio book as well as written book. So I come out and I just tell you these things. And, really, when I look back, when I was writing the book and I'm thinking, God almighty, how in the hell? So that's the soldier against all odds, is like, I just went, there was so many things that things defied, whether it be a college education, getting kicked out, or just things. And so, but these are, I mean, I look back now and that's the way it was. And I sort of, now I'm over the, like, God, I was a dumb ass. I was a dumb ass. But now I'm like, okay, that's just, I feel like that's the way it was. And I'm accepting it.
So you went to, where did you go from Korea?
Oh, so South Korea, I went to go to my medical training at Fort Sam Houston, Texas.
I see.
Fort Sam. And I got a whole year of training at Fort Sam. This is training TRADOC, they're training and doctoring. And so we went to the Army Advanced Course and all these various medical specialty courses there, and I get in big trouble. This is big trouble.
This is where I seen it coming too. As soon as you said Fort Sam, I said, "Oh, this is where it starts."
So, I love going to the training. I felt like I'm a enlisted guy from the Combat Arms, from the National Guard, from the Nasty Girls. I'm walking into all this advanced training, and I'm like, wow, this is pretty cool. And I'm here, and we got girls here too, and things, and we got a lot of time to go off post and whatever. And I did everything like every soldier does, and I did pass my courses. But so there's what the big one out of this story is, I got a DUI, drinking and driving under the influence, and I got caught. And I got a GOMOR. A GOMOR is a General Officer Memorandum of Reprimand. So I mean, this is a letter from a general saying you are done. You are done. From our training, it's a GOMOR, and it went on my. So this was bad. I mean, so I went down here. So I was brought into the battalion commander's office. I was a captain at the time. I had recently got promoted, and I was a captain. Went into the battalion commander's office, and it was all legal. Everything was written out. Stand attention. Do you know that you've been driving and drinking? Blah, 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 blah. He was just reading a letter saying you're screwed, you're done. That means a GOMOR means your reputation to the military. You have dishonored the military. You
better figure out what you're going to do in the civilian world, because your career is over.
You are done. You are done. And I knew that. I knew. Well, when I got locked up, I got cuffed and stuffed. So the situation was I do admit I was drinking and driving, but the details of it was, I was in a restaurant. This was weird. I was standing in line at the Taco Cabana in San Antonio, and I saw a police officer out there waving me in from the restaurant. And I ran out. I thought there was an emergency and he needed help. And he ran out. And apparently he says, "Have you been drinking and driving?" I said, "Yeah." Which was like a dumbass. Like, "Yeah, I've been drinking. Is that your car over there?" I said, "Yeah," like a dumbass. It's like, because I was like, I thought he needed help, and he's asking me these details of things that, I'm not driving, and I'm in a restaurant, and why are you asking me these questions? I just answered the questions, and I thought he needed help, and he said, "Well, let's do a sobriety test on you." And and he did the sobriety test on me. And so I don't know the situation. I don't know if he was following me. I don't know if he was already in the parking lot. I don't know all the details, but yes, I told him the truth. I was drinking and driving, locked me up, cuffed me, stuffed me in the police car, sent me downtown, and the MPs had to get me. I blew hot on about 0.11, right above the legal limit. That was a GOMOR. That was done. I knew I was done. I said, "Yep, this is it. I'm done. I'm going to go back to the Nasty Girls. I mean, the National Guard." That's what I thought. I thought I was just going to be kicked out. And hey, I made it to a captain. I'm a positive thinker. From an E1 to a captain. So that was it. But I said, well, I talked to a sergeant, and the sergeant says, it happened to him one time, and there's a regulation of appeals. It's going to take a long time. If I didn't talk to that one sergeant, I would have just accepted, but if there's an appeal process, I'll just give you the regulation. You have to work it out. Oh, okay, I'll give it a try. And it took 2 years. It took 2 years to appeal it. I went through like another 2 inches of paperwork or so to justify that I'm good to the Army, that I have done my duty, I have paid the price for the arrest. It went through back and forth, motion after motion, in and out of the court. I had to go through civilian civilian court and then so I had to go through two processes of getting off the civilian record and then really getting off the military record. Well, it really didn't get off the military. It went into the restricted file,
Right.
but I had to work through two different battles with a lawyer over a period of time. And so it was hard. It was hard.
Yeah.
It was hard time. I didn't think I was going to succeed at all. I mean, it was a general officer. But apparently they appealed it. They a long, painful process. I paid it. And they said, well, we're going to put it into your restricted file. And it went into my restricted file from the performance file. It was firstly in the performance file, and then it went into the restricted file. And again, it goes back. How in the hell? It's like one of those things. How the hell did you get to college? How in the hell did you get out of the basic? How in the hell did you get out of this? It was one damn thing after the other, and it did. That was a second time that I came to Jesus. First time come to Jesus was CCF. That was just because of my unadaptability to the Army, and then the behavior was the drinking and the driving. That was more like my cockiness, like I can do everything. And then I'm not above the law. Now I got rung down like, oh shit, I'm a captain. And so I said, well, I don't want this ever to happen to me. And after that second offense after that DUI, I pretty straightened up pretty well. I really did. I did very well after that. I didn't take anything for granted. I was not cocky anymore like I was. And that was at the age of 32, 33. And it took me that long to come down to like, hey, you know what? I can't take anything for granted anymore. Or I got to have an attitude adjustment in some way. And that DUI, that kind of did that for me.
Operation Encore is a 501c nonprofit that is helping veterans turn into rock stars every single day. You can learn more about what Operation Encore is doing by going over to their website at www.operationencore.org. That is www.operationencore.org. If you can give them a hand, just click that little donate button or follow all of their social medias and learn exactly what they are doing to change the lives of our veterans every single day. Yeah, absolutely. Did you take command then after that?
Yeah, I took command. Eventually I got another master's degree. I went to but I eventually got a command in fifth in Yongsan, South Korea, fifth medical detachment. I did really well at command. I don't know. There was just something about commanding of troops, taking care of people. I could relate with soldiers really well. If I'm in training or if I'm in staff or things of that nature, but with command, I did really well. Now the politics of command really disturbed me a lot. I just didn't understand what the games were being played at that level. I just said, well, if I'm a commander, I just got to take care of my troops. That's it. But there are also games in the political level of commandship and above that are going on, and I don't know what's going on here, dude. But I did well, and I did two commands in my entire career, and I felt that those were the best. Anytime I was in charge of people that could take care of me, even if I was a platoon leader, even in the South Carolina National Guard, I did well then too. But if I had direct influence of people, like I am the leader and I'm going to take care of you, here's my first sergeant here, I did well. When I got into staff and these ambiguous and training situations where my brain got crazy with stuff and other things, it was hard for me. But no, I did well. I did 2 years in Yongsan's garrison in Seoul. I did there and did really well. I mean, matter of fact, I did very, very well. I went off post and I adapted well to civilian communities and did lots of different things in that command. And so, that's where that
was. That as a captain or had you gotten promoted?
I had gotten promoted to a major. Yeah, I got promoted to a major. I went through that DUI, got redeemed. These things I never said to my comrades. And I think a lot of them knew some things, but I never told anybody much of anything about all these little situations I was in because it's political and everybody talks and everybody's trying to get a game up. I learned that early in the officership that everybody's trying to get a game up, and I said, you just don't say shit. You just keep your life professional you might have one or two friends, but most of them, you just don't want to say you don't say your dirty laundry. Since I'm retired, I can say my dirty laundry and try to teach other people these things. But at the time, there's no way I would say some of these things because that means that they can And I'd like to get promoted too. And I want to have a successful career. I want to get my 20 years. But yeah, so I had gotten promoted to major and did 2 years in Yongsan again. That was right after 9/11.
Yeah, a lot of my listeners may not understand, but it's y'all's rankings are nothing like what the ratings for NCOs. NCOs, everybody can be a number one. It just depends on your writer and how good he is writing.
Right.
The battalion commander, when he's rating his officers, there's only one number one. And all it would have took was for him to know your history. And he's going to hold that against you. And it's going to be in his mind, well, how am I going to rate this guy above this guy? Well, he did this. You're automatically going to go to the bottom, even though it's in your restricted fish, even though nobody can see it and it's only hearsay. Yeah, you would have had a really tough time had anybody known.
Yes, and I knew that. Not to say anything. And even when I wrote this book, me and my wife were discussing, should I come out with it? I said, you know what? I'm not in the Army anymore. It doesn't matter. And technically, it's not on my civilian record. So we even kept things such a secret for such a long, long time. Yeah. I mean, I'm a learning disabled. It's on paper that I can't process things. I failed the first grade, and I didn't want to say that to anybody because, again, life's competitive, and they can game shit on that. These things in the military, when you're moving up that ladder, you got to be strong, and you got to understand that other people will try to pump you down if you don't, even I know that on the streets that way, but even in professional life, that's just life. And you just got to understand you got to keep your information to yourself or to your close old friends and not spill it out. But I'm spilling it out now since I have nothing to prove and that I feel that I could help other people.
Yeah, absolutely. So it says that, so when did the book come then? So was that after that? So after the military, what made you decide to write it? What was the purpose?
The purpose of the book was just to give inspiration and hope. It was like, how did a dumbass like you do all of this shit? It was like, it was in a family that was like, they could not believe I could do this. What I'm saying, it's not that, and it was just common questions like, you graduated college, you became an officer, you dumbass. You got promoted to a major. Yeah, I did, So it was just one and I understand that. And I'm not trying to throw shit at them, but I'm trying to say, yes, it's true. It surprised me myself, but I felt that even graduating, I felt that I had, some inspiration and hope even way before I retired. I felt that there was something there as a book, and especially as events unfolded, I felt that there was definitely a book. And so it was wearing on my mind for a period of time. So once I got retired, I didn't want to write the book with my mother and father alive because I want to honor them. Because if I'm going to write a book, I got to be like, wow, I'm going to give it out to everybody. And I can't. My mother and father, I didn't. So they're gone. And so that's when I felt comfortable to write the book after they were gone, where I can just be free with everything and just do it. That's kind of what I did. It had been on my mind. And it took about 3 years to do it. It took about 3 years of just pounding. And so in my mind, my post-retirement life, other than retiring from the military, which is an achievement, but the book here was probably my next best achievement in my life, because this is where I just unload all my life lessons and all the fuck ups I did and how I worked through it. And it's the same, but it's really the same thing that you hear in a lot of those SEALs and and I'm not a SEAL, I'm not a special operator, but it's really the same old concept of you just got to keep on going. But I do it in many different levels. I've been arrested many times. I've been investigated. I am not the best soldier. I'm probably less than best, but I made it up there pretty well by just keep on. I don't have the best reputation in the military, but I did what I did to survive and to accomplish missions. And I did well in many assignments. Some assignments I just didn't do well because the way it happened.
Yeah. So I'm assuming that was your first book. The one for the veterans benefits. Is that your second book?
So this was my first book. This is the juicy, everything we're talking about. Now, my second book, this is out of civilian life, out of the uniform, back into civilian life. This is a veteran self-help book. This is basically how to get your veterans benefits, but it's told in a storytelling style with a lot of links and a lot of messagings to what you need to do to get your benefits, regardless if you're retired or maybe transitioning or what have you. So the reason I wrote this book is because no one wanted to help me in Germany when I was retiring. I was retiring in Germany, and I didn't know. I mean, they didn't want it. So I had to put all my paperwork and do the documentations myself. What I'm saying is there was no service officer there. I was a lieutenant colonel. I'm asking for help, and there's nobody helping me out.
Yeah.
And I asked them, I was a planner. I was like, and I knew some people in Washington, D.C., but they said, that's out of my jurisdiction. And so there's only, I don't know, there was some problems. I don't know. So I just went ahead and did it myself, and I did very, very well. And I learned a lot, and it took me a long time to do it. And I said, this might be something. I knew this stuff very well. And so, and I learned a lot that it's just not for, like a lot of people say, whoa, I'm not a combat veteran. I don't deserve it. I worked in the chair force. I don't deserve it because I was in the Air Force chair force. Or maybe the thing about it is if you served it, you deserve it. I don't give a crap about your excuse, and just put your information in there and go for something. And it's not gaming it. It's not like it's putting it in there for the future, because in the future you may need something from them you don't know about. It's a huge bureaucracy. And I'm trying to tell them, encourage them, this is what it is. It's more than just you're getting it. Well, you know what? They deserve it more than me because I didn't. It doesn't matter. Well, I'm saving the government money because I'm not. You ain't saving shit. So I'm saying. So I just say what I'm trying to say is go ahead, put your application in there, and work with the process. But because there's so much out there that you don't understand.
Yeah. You are absolutely right. I didn't file mine until 3 years after I retired, and that was my own stupidity, and part of it was PTSD and my temper and my pride and about any other sin that you could probably think of. Where were you at in Germany? I was in Germany as well.
I was in Landstuhl, Germany. Yeah,
Landstuhl. My daughter was born in Landstuhl, and I was stationed in Baumholder.
What's that far? That's far. Nope. So I was right there at the hospital, near the hospital, and so I was able to go in and out of there pretty easy. I know a lot of people come from different parts of Germany to go to Landstuhl to do the paperwork. Yep. It was when I left. It was 2014, but there was only one service officer. They just would not work with me at all. And I notified him a year out. I said, I'm retiring. And then 2 months, no appointments. How about one? It's like, okay, this is on me now. I got to figure this thing out. I had to go through all my records. I had to go, and I didn't want to do this. I really hated it. I'm an officer. I'm lazy. I want to give it to somebody else. Let them fucking do it. But I couldn't do that. I had to figure this thing out myself to get because it's going to be my benefits and it's going to be another paycheck. And so I went through entire process of getting all this stuff down and writing all the documents out and just typing everything out. And it was an entire workload. And I learned a whole lot. So I was, it's like one of those things, you go through a little bit of hell, but you learn a little bit. Now I can teach them other folks.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to tell you, the VA, everybody needs to be writing books about that because, man, that is a very secret society and they keep the keys very tight, and everything comes down, the word choice you use could be the difference between 10% and 30%. Exactly. It really could.
Yeah, it's not high blood pressure; it's hypertension. And how many times do you get up to pee at night? Yep. 2-3 times. So I'm looking at these details of the regulations, saying this or that, and yes, exactly. So, and there's like if you've got cream. And once you get into the VA system, then there's all these other benefits that you may not know about. Whereas you can get paid mileage to go to your appointment. They pay you federal mileage. If you've got creams or any braces that are on your body and they interfere with your civilian uniform, you can get uniform allowances. And you don't know it, but they'll pay you to go on vacation because they believe that therapy is outdoor recreation. It could be skiing. It could be going to San Diego for summer sports clinics. It could be if you're in guitar or you like to artist, there's creative lessons. So they want you to get out there. There's these. That's called a recreational therapist that will give you the opportunities to go out. within nonprofits or within the VA system for outdoor therapy, and they'll pay you to go away from your town to do things. But what I'm saying is just like, again, there is just so much out there. It's mind boggling.
Yeah.
And it's more than just a paycheck. It's more than, I mean, honestly, if I've got TRICARE and I got VA, if I were to get health care, I would go TRICARE. I would not go VA. Now with VA, I'll take all of their equipment. If I had to have hearing aids, if I had to have braces, if I had to have anything exotic equipment, maybe even medical. So, but I don't have a whole lot of trust in the VA medical doctors, but I have a whole lot of trust in their equipment. But that's just, but there might be a good VA doctor out there, but I've heard a whole lot of horror stories. I'll take the VA's money in a heartbeat, and I'll take their benefits and all the other things. But what I'm saying is there's just so much out there that I just say, go ahead, apply for it. A lot of people don't even have any type of health care, and that might be the one thing they need.
Yeah. Well, sir, if you don't mind, tell everybody where they can find your books, any web pages, and social media, and all that good stuff.
Sure. So you can find my 2 books out. Soldier Against All Odds. That's everybody's odds. That's me. And then you got the VA pamphlet. This is mostly out of the uniform, back into civilian life. I'm on jasonpike.org, jasonpike.org. Both of the books are on Amazon. So I'm on Amazon, Jason Pike, jasonpike.org. That's where you'll find me. You'll find my social handles there. Yep, there you go.
All right. Well, I will make sure that we include all the links to everything, and I will also make sure I get you a copy of all the links to all the episodes, and we'll make the world know about it, especially the VA one, because there's a unfortunately, I also think this too. I think there's a lot of people that have a lot of questions, and then you have a lot of the veterans that are just like, you know what, this is just too much work to figure it out, and they give up. Yeah. And I can see the both, and it's our duty to get the word out. So I commend you for putting that out there for people, because that is that's a book I would not want to write. I can promise you that.
Yeah, that's right. And the veteran, just if you can get a good veteran service officer, don't do what the hell I did. Go to a veteran service officer and get them to do it. I couldn't do it because I couldn't find one. Believe it or not, at 31 years, Lieutenant Colonel, I can't find a VSO. But go to a veteran service officer. That's the best thing to do. Yeah, but you can just breeze through it. I got a whole lot of links in that thing where you can just kind of look at it. Might change your mind. Hopefully it does change your mind or your friends or your family members' mind to go ahead and get their benefits. Yeah. Regardless, I don't care if you're not saving shit. You ain't saving nobody nothing. You ain't being honorable to nobody. Get your own benefits for you and your family.
You're being dishonorable to yourself.
And also because your benefits could live on after you die to your family members.
That is true.
So just so many things that you just don't really know.
That is true. Well, if you don't mind sticking around, we'll go and throw the exit out there.
All right.
Hey, everybody that listens, y'all take care, man. Be safe, and we will see you next week.